So I've sold a lot of stuff on Facebook Marketplace, eBay, Craigslist, and of course Reverb. I've had mostly good luck buying and selling on Reverb. Although it never fails, there's always somebody who's trying to scam you by engaging like this on this off-platform transaction. But doing a bit of financial forensics, I was kind of shocked just at how costly it can get selling on Reverb. And before I go any further, let me know your preferences on buying and selling used audio gear and your experiences. Maybe you have some tips and tricks that we can all learn from. Leave them in the comments below. Now, to Reverb's credit, there's what's called like a max fee limit of $500. So even if you sell some rare, really expensive vintage synth or whatnot, you'll only be charged up to $500. But there is a catch though, which I will talk about a little bit later. In fact, in my opinion, I would rank, generally speaking, Reverb as like my top choice for music gear as opposed to, say, eBay, Craigslist, or Facebook Marketplace as the platform of choice for buying and selling used audio gear. Those others are still really great viable options for different reasons, but for me currently my go-to is still Reverb. Scam protection has been pretty good for me so far on Reverb as well. A lot of folks will email you with suspicious offers, and I do my best to report them. And as far as I can tell, the fraud response team over at Reverb is lightning fast, and that's just my own one-person sample size. But their responsiveness makes me feel pretty safe buying and selling on a marketplace that feels like it's well policed and monitored. And in all honesty, if you have old gear lying around that you're not using, you'll make some money. And Reverb, I think, is by far the most accessible marketplace. And I'm grateful that it exists. I often wish that there was a Reverb type of marketplace for my camera gear. Sure, there are a few places, but nothing like Reverb. So it's no surprise that tech gear, generally speaking, is a terrible investment, fiscally speaking, right? Now, with the exception of some like lucky find or rare vintage items, audio gear tends to be a loss leader transaction, which is fine if you get productivity, usefulness, and some joy out of the whole thing, right? It's just that when you take a closer look at some of these actual transactions that's taking place on Reverb, it gets painful really fast. So let's take a look at one specific transaction on Reverb that I had recently. The reality is that by the time you subtract the shipping costs and the fees, it's costing like a minimum 5 to even 10% on your transaction as a baseline, even if you think you're breaking even. And don't forget the tax you paid when you first bought it. And in the US, the government gets to like double dip here by taxing the seller and the buyer twice, which is definitely frustrating. I paid a sales tax on my new Pulsar, but my buyer on Reverb, when I sell this used gear on Reverb, has to pay a tax on that. Now, I bought the Pulsar from Perfect Circuit with a 10% discount. So the math as it stands is it was $22.50 minus 10% discount, which brings it down to $20.25 plus the tax of $207 and 56 cents. So it comes out to $23.32 and 56 cents. While I love the Pulsar, I needed to really make space and some budget for my new Erica Synths Perkins. I admit it was really hard letting go of the Pulsar, but I just needed to let go of something. So after owning it for about 6 months, I put it on Reverb. After less than a week, I was able to sell it for $17.50 plus $50 in shipping to the seller. Now the buyer actually paid a total of $19.44 and 44 cents because he had to pay sales tax on his end. But for me, after all is said and done, after Reverb takes a cut of 5% plus another 3%, which does upscale, like I mentioned, for the payment processing fee, plus another 0.5% bump fee, which Reverb tenaciously pushes on you to advertise on a marketplace you're already paying for to advertise, to give it a little more exposure for their search algorithm. So my total Reverb payout finally was $15.86 and 56 cents. So this entire transaction, after I did all the work of taking the pictures, packaging, shipping, I lost $746 on the whole transaction. So the question is, for 6 months or so, I had the Pulsar. Did I get $746 worth of value out of it? I'm gonna say maybe. On one hand, I love the gear. I had a ton of fun with it. I got to make videos out of it, got inspired, and learned a new piece of technology. I recorded a bunch of great sounds with it as well. But I sold it because I just had to make room. So I'm kind of bummed for sure for losing $746. Whether this is right or wrong way to think about it, I don't know. But what's super disappointing, and I think this is the key here, is that I was under the delusion that it was a whole lot less than that. Meaning, I kind of had no idea until I went through my bank statement and saw the final payout amount was significantly lower than I had imagined. I guess what's frustrating is I started to really dissect other similar online transactions I've had in the past, and I noticed a similar pattern. I had this false sense that somehow the whole thing was costing me a whole lot less, as if somehow I kind of was breaking even, but in reality, the gap, the loss, was actually a lot more than that. So you buy it, of course, to use it for projects and the joy it brings if you want to keep it for the long term, and I'm not certainly denying that. But on the Reverb platform, they did almost too good of a job of making me feel a whole lot better about the transaction than it really was. I'm under no illusion that when I buy a piece of gear, it's some kind of a cash making or a breaking endeavor. I just think that the biggest takeaway here is that I stopped using the mental justification for pulling the trigger on sort of iffy, on the fence gear. Sometimes because I think that I can just sell it later on Reverb and get my money back. Instead, I need to really focus more and like a whole lot more on other factors, like usefulness and the joy of ownership. I mean, this is true for your smartphone or your car. That's just the wheels of consumerism and capitalism turning. It's just as simple as taking a really good look at your actual sales transaction and just deciding whether it's working for you or not. And for me, in this case, I just have to be a lot more careful. So, okay, what do you guys think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, your take, your philosophy on this whole thing. I'll see you guys next time.